In the 16 years since the disintegration of the Soviet Union, Russia has experienced what can only be described as an economic and cultural metamorphosis. Socialism has given way to privatization, and that has led to vast wealth for some. Many in Russia argue that democracy and liberty are suffering at the altar of commerce. Others fear the man in charge, Vladimir Putin, seems more like a Soviet-era party boss than the leader of a free country. What does all this mean for Russia's relationship with the West? Has the fall of the Iron Curtain led to a political realignment? We'll look at these and other issues next on Great Decisions.
In a democracy, agreement is not essential, but participation is. Join us as we discuss today's most critical global issues. Join us for Great Decisions. Great Decisions is produced by the Foreign Policy Association, inspiring Americans to learn more about the world.
Funding for Great Decisions is provided by the Star Foundation and U.S. Trust.
Many in the West thought the Soviet Union's demise was democracy's great triumph. It seemed to be the beginning of a new era for freedom in Russia and beyond. But just as very few predicted the fall of the USSR 16 years ago, few would have predicted the kind of country Russia has become today. Many Russians are embracing capitalism. The emerging middle class flocks to countless chain stores that have appeared in Russian cities. New American and European cars zip through the streets, replacing Soviet-era junkers. There's a construction boom. The economy is growing.
There are a lot of things going on in Russia that give the Russians reason for self-satisfaction and even a certain cockiness.
But the opening of Russia's markets hasn't been free of controversy. Immediately after the Soviet Union's collapse, a select few Russian businessmen, many with ties to the Kremlin, bought up the bulk of the country's formerly state-owned industries. Oil, telecommunications, transportation, all at bargain basement prices. They made billions. Today, many say business deals don't get done without the Kremlin's approval. And some of these oligarchs now find themselves living in exile or even in a Siberian prison for no other reason than being on the wrong side of a dispute with Vladimir Putin. Speaking truth to power is a relatively new phenomenon in Russia. Democratic reform movements do exist, most notably the coalition known as the Other Russia, and one of its leaders, former chess champion Garry Kasparov. The group has drawn attention to a variety of issues: freedom of the press, civil liberties, the war in Chechnya, and even alleged assassinations of political opponents at home and abroad. Here's the question: are such opposition groups in Russia just part of a vigorous democratic process, or is democracy in Russia fundamentally threatened? How far has this nation come from its authoritarian past, and where is it heading? There's also Russia's evolving and volatile relationship with Europe and the United States.
We know that what President Bush thought he saw in President Putin's eyes didn't turn out to be there, and it certainly was never a basis for a relationship.
Russia may not be the evil empire anymore, but East and West still seem to disagree on a lot. Reexamining Russia, next on Great Decisions.
And now from our New York studios, here is Ralph Begleiter.
Welcome to Great Decisions. To help us explore Russia's role in the world and its relations with the United States, Stephen Sestanovich, Senior Fellow for Russian and Eurasian Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations and former U.S. Ambassador to the once Soviet states. And Dimitri Simes, President of the Nixon Center, which publishes the bi-monthly journal called The National Interest. Welcome to you both.